be professionals.
Yes, we definitely are.
Fire it up. Let's go.
Okay, calm down. We are live over on YouTube, so we're officially going to get this started.
Alex, fired up. Alex, get you fired up.
Go already.
What are you waiting for? Why don't you put it on fire? Fire it up.
Yappy.
2. What is up, everybody? Welcome to Comic Book Club. I'm Alex.
I'm Justin.
I'm Pete.
And we are coming to you live from the internet of all places. Can you believe it? 2 places that we're coming from in particular are Crowdcast and YouTube, or maybe you're listening to the podcast version of this over wherever you listen to finding podcasts. Very excited to have you here for tonight's show. Justin, Pete, how are you guys doing? You're seeming a little loose tonight, a little fresh.
Tip top. Well, there's a lot going on. It's March Madness. You got a lot of stuff. We have a pool in our comic book club world, in our comic book club Patreon Slack.
Yep.
And I was feeling pretty good a couple days ago. Now I'm just getting crushed. I'm getting absolutely crushed.
You can't get cocky in those things, man.
No, you can't get cocky. Josh is crushing us all. Wow. He picked all 4 Final Four teams. That's like the odds are very, very long on that one.
Man, and that's hard in basketball.
Well, it hasn't been fully decided yet, but that's what I think
really
he's going to end up having.
Oh my god!
Yeah, you're right, Alex. Jump in. What was your bracket?
Yeah,
oh gosh. Well, I definitely my Final Four was definitely the top 4 teams, which, as we know, you guys say them because I don't want to.
Yeah, I got it. You had Reed Richards, Sue Storm, Human Torch,
Wolverine, and Hulk. I like to mix it up between the new and old Fantastic Four.
Smart.
That's smart. And those are the long shots. That's what you call a Cinderella team. Is picking Wolverine to be in your Final Four.
Russell Crowe was actually in my Cinderella Man team.
Wow.
Wow. And see, you're like, oh, you guys with your sports references, and you make the most esoteric Russell Crowe reference that you could find. That's like some deep internet shit.
Name literally any other Russell Crowe movie. I dare you. Other than Cinderella Man.
Yeah, that's true. There was Cinderella Master and Commander. I believe was the main
Gladiator.
Cinderella Mandiator. I remember all of these.
Are you not entertained?
Are you not glass slippered? He said.
Folks, we have an exciting show for you. We have 2 great guests here tonight. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to invite the first one here into the stream. He is the creator of the new comic book Count that is out from Humanoids right now on stands everywhere or in your digital bookshops everywhere. His name's Ibrahim Moustafa. The book is very gorgeous, and I'm excited to talk about it. He'll tell you more about it, but it is a sci-fi take on the Count of Monte Cristo. Hello, Ibrahim. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. First of all, did I mangle your name?
Ibrahim, but more importantly, you called it the Count of Monte Cristo.
That's what I was going to say. That's what I was going to
God damn it. I was practicing. I swear to God, I was practicing before the show, and in my head, I was like, don't say Count of Monte Cristo.
Yeah.
I feel like that's got to be something that we only do in the United States, right?
Yeah, 100%. Alexander Dumbass says Count of Monte Cristo.
Oh, man.
Crisco is so important to the fabric of our society here.
Yeah. In the UK, they actually call it the Count of Clotted Cream.
Hey, that makes
Wow, way to drop in the Cinderella Man of confectionery cooking, Alex.
So tell us a little bit about this book. This is out now from Humanoids. You can get it anywhere. I think we know what the inspiration was, but where did you take the Count of Monte Cristo and then put it in a sci-fi setting? Where did that start?
Yeah, so it's a very famous story, right? It's a literary classic. It's been around for almost 200 years. And I love revenge stories and stories about people exacting, and getting their comeuppance and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of thinking about those types of stories, and I started thinking about the Count of Monte Cristo, and I was like, what if it was cool? Like, because and I don't mean that in a pejorative way, but like the original novel takes place in during like the 1800s in France, and it's a period thing. It's of a time, and I just kind of thought, what if it took place in a setting that was totally different and more contemporary and just kind of like contemporary while being timeless. You know what I mean? So there's nothing in this book that ties it to like, cell phones or anything anachronistic. Like it's its
I would
own
love the
thing.
idea if you just did the whole book again, but everyone had cell phones.
Yeah.
He was like, when he was in prison for 40 years or whatever, he was like, "Hey, what's up? Yep, still here. Just chill. Let me know. What do you think? What's the deal?"
Yeah, he's just tweeting his vitriol at the people instead of you know. So yeah, that's how it came about. I just wanted to, you know, put my spin on that story that I love, that I think has a lot of timeless themes in it, but update it in a way that makes it cooler and, you know, gives it some action, because the original story has like zero action in it whatsoever. Like a lot of people think it's swashbuckling because Alexander Dumas wrote The Three Musketeers, and they go like, oh, it's a retelling of this swashbuckling adventure, but it's like, nah, the original book is very dry. Like it's like
there's a whole lot of it about how he slowly builds up a tolerance to poison.
Yes.
Like
yeah.
I read the shit out of that book, and it
too.
It gets into it.
And it's a great book. I don't mean to make it seem like it's not as cool. I mean, it's fantastic. Like, and it's you know, it's the granddaddy of all revenge stories, really. But it's light on action, heavy on kind of slow, you know, intrigue and machinations and stuff like that. So
well, when you were taking this and putting it in the sci-fi setting, given that you love the book, what was sacred and what wasn't? How did you choose what elements to keep and what to ditch?
Well, I basically just boiled it down to the broad strokes of it, right? A guy has the world on a string, and, you know, he's engaged, and he has people who are jealous of him, and they conspire against him to get him thrown in a prison for the rest of his life that is supposed to be inescapable. He escapes and you know, amasses a treasure and then seeks his revenge. So that's pretty much what I took from it. And then I just pretty much changed everything after that. Like, and even the way those things happen were different. So like, you know, he's in the prison, but it's like, instead of an island, you know, the Chateau d'If, which is a real place, it's the DIF, the disciplinary internment faction. And it's like, you know, 1,000 feet in the air. So it's, you know, like you can't escape that thing pretty much. So he has to find a way to do it. And within the prison, there's this sort of prisoner fight club thing that he's made to participate in. Classic. That is a life or death thing. And, you know, so I really just tried to heighten the stakes within the framework of the original, and then add a lot to it in terms of thematics with, you know, it's about justice and classism and you know, wrongful incarceration and stuff like that, and then there's robots in it too. So
nice. Now you're talking.
Given that this was just one novel, but comics is an ongoing medium, did you look at this as also a standalone graphic novel, or was there an eye to making an ongoing series? Where was your head at there?
I wanted to make a world that I could tell more stories in, but I wanted this to be a finite story within that world. So I do, for example, have an idea for a follow-up that I would do that would just focus on one character and not everyone else who's in it. So yeah, you know, ultimately the goal was to make it just a singular volume that people can read, whether they're familiar with the original or not. You can just pick this up. There's no continuity you got to worry about, anything like that. It's just a one and done. I really like the experience of reading a trade or a graphic novel, and it's just like, it's all there. It's a meal. You know, you kind of feel like you just watched a 2-hour movie or something. So that was what I set out to do.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, I want to just say, somebody who, when I read this in school as a kid, I really felt seen, because there was a person who was rewarded for hanging on to their rage. You know what I mean? So like, I very much love this story. Was it just something that like, what was it that really spoke to you to kind of be the spark that like, I want to update it? Were you like, hey, I also love rage, or what was your kind of first thing that drew you to it?
Well, I think, you know, it's the idea that there's always terrible stuff happening to people every day, and very seldom do we get to see, you know, the people who are the perpetrators of these wrongdoings brought to justice, right? I mean, we just lived through, you know, several years of just like watching terrible thing after terrible thing, and everybody is just like getting off scot-free for it, you know? And so this book was kind of like a way for me to have a bit of catharsis, like, and I think that's what I enjoy about their genre in general is that, we don't get to see people get their deserved comeuppance very often, and so in these types of stories, you get it, and it's satisfying, and you get to feel like maybe there's a little bit of hope for that happening in the real world, I guess. So,
we just don't have the patience that the Count has. He's got
right.
He's like, I'll spend my life being mad about this. Then I'm going to get some weird revenge.
He's definitely not a water off the duck's back kind of guy.
Yeah.
No.
Now, let me ask you, if you're, we were talking about, a lot of people talking about Three Musketeers. You mentioned Three Musketeers. What do you think about the Count of Monte Cristo 2002, I want to say, movie versus the 1993 Three Musketeers movie with Oliver Platt as Porthos and all those other dudes hanging around?
Well, only one of those movies had a Bryan Adams song on the soundtrack.
I think maybe mostly Bryan Adams songs.
Yeah,
Bryan Adams songs, and it was a hot collab with two other Sting, I want to say.
I think so.
No?
I mean, it rings a bell. It's been a while. I do like that movie, but the 2002 Count of Monte Cristo one it's really, really good. Like, and it holds up really well. Like 15 years later or whatever.
It does, yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
it's
it's almost 20 years later, isn't it?
Bryan Adams, Rod Stewart, and Sting.
Rod Stewart.
All for
there
love.
it is. How did they bring those
the Three
Musketeers
together? Oh my 100%. God.
Yeah. Let's not forget Chris O'Donnell as D'Artagnan riding out there being like, what year is this?
Also, this is way off topic, but while I was looking this up, you know how Google has the lyrics under the video? It starts off with, "Thank you, Wembley. You've been fantastic audience tonight, and I'm sure there'll be a bootleg in your shop soon. Anyway, we're going to be hanging around London for a few days after this, and I'll see you there." And then it goes on for a while before they actually get to the lyrics of the song. That's fine. That's it.
What, do you have a live version of All for One?
I guess so. That's the default version on Google.
It's funny that they picked those three guys because, like, Rod Stewart and Bryan Adams both have that same kind of raspiness to their voice. And then Sting is just like the odd man out, I guess, much like Porthos, as played by...
Here you go. Here you go. Bringing it together. What a pro.
Now, just to continue along this line of thinking, since you've got the Count of Monte Cristo so far, would you ever want to do a sci-fi version of Three Musketeers, or do you just not want to be the guy who does Dumas, but in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I might, look to do a similar spin on something else, but yeah, I certainly wouldn't want it to be like, a pigeonholed kind of thing. I mean, it's really easy to have that happen. Like I did a lot of James Bond comic stuff and just art in general because I'm a big Bond fan. And then you start to become the guy who's like, oh, we got suits and guns in this comic. Let's ask him to do it. And it's like, so that was also part of making this book, is I wanted to show that I could draw other stuff.
Let me ask you, have you ever thought about doing anything with Zorro?
Oh, I was like, how did he know? I love
Zorro. For those of you listening, yes, there's a beautiful Zorro painting right behind his head.
Thank you. Yeah, I started it months ago, and I've just been too busy to go back to it, but I've left it there so that I don't forget about it. Thank you.
It looks awesome.
I love Zorro. I'm a big fan of the Antonio Banderas movie. If it wasn't taped to the desk for watercolor paper stretching purposes, I would peel it up and hold it up to the screen. But it's on my. I've got progress shots on my Instagram if anyone's interested in checking it out.
That's awesome. Very cool. Before we let you go here, to that point, beyond Count, what else are you doing? What else are you working on if you want to plug anything?
So I've got, Count is the first in a 3-book deal that I have with Humanoids. I'm about 60% of the way through my second book with them. It's a little too early to talk about, unfortunately, but it's a new thing. It's, an original idea, and it's kind of a genre mashup in a way. So I think people will dig it. It's definitely a departure from Count, but it's, so it's not like another adaptation type of thing or anything, but a little bit of little bit of fun kind of espionage type of stuff. So I guess I am kind of doing the dudes in suits with guns thing again. But so yeah, I guess just keep an eye out for that. If you look up my name on Comixology, you can see all the stuff I've worked on. If any of it piques your interest, done some DC stuff and Vertigo and like I said, James Bond and all that. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. The book looks great. Very excited that it's out there, and I hope people check it out soon.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you guys for having me. And yeah, if people want to go to countcomic.com, you can see a cinematic style trailer that I put together for it, and there's links to order it and links to my sites and all that good stuff. So
awesome. All right. Have a good night.
Thank you. You too. Thanks, fellas. Take care.
Yeah, take care.
Thanks, man. Have a good one.
All right. Once again, that is Count by Ibrahim Moustafa. That is out now from Humanoids. You can get it as a site, as he mentioned, and it is very cool. And now we're going to bring our next guest into the stream here. He is the writer of one of our favorite comic books on the show. I'm very personally surprised to say this, which I'm fine saying, but he writes G.I. Joe for IDW. No, I am. I don't want to think I'm slamming it or anything like that. Ladies and gentlemen, Paul Allor. Hello.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, Paul, thanks so much for jumping in. So I will start off with this. I was not a huge G.I. Joe fan. I love your book. It's so good. We have talked about almost every issue of it on our Stack podcast. What was your approach here? What did you start with? Because I'll say, Pete, diehard G.I. Joe fan from back in the day. Me, could care less about G.I. Joe. We both love the book. So
I wasn't allowed to watch G.I. Joe because they held guns.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So Paul, what did you start with? What is it about this book in particular that made it for you a fresh take?
It actually had a pretty long incubation period working with IDW and Hasbro. What we finally came around to is that Hasbro came up with the base concept of trying to modernize the franchise, and they wanted two big things. They wanted Cobra to be more of a world power than they had been in the past, and they wanted G.I. Joe to be more of an espionage group comprised of civilians rather than just military folks, which is obviously a huge departure.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my charge, my starting point. And I don't think they expected me to actually create this world where Cobra is basically already won. I think they were thinking to be further along the timeline than that. But I just kind of decided to go all in with it, and I think it's. I think it works really well. I think it reflects our age of sort of rising totalitarianism around the globe in the same way that the original book reflected the Cold War. So, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and you've been telling this mega story that, I don't know, did it end with the Castle Fall one-shot, or is it continue after that? Or you can't say, you're getting a very...
I can't say. No announcements are made on that one way or the other yet. So,
all right. But you do have this mega story that's been building, like you said, starts off with Cobra's already won, G.I. Joe is on the run trying to stop them. But one of the things that I really liked about it in particular is every issue was paced for the issue. Like, you had a very specific idea, a very specific tone for each issue. So was that part of the original pitch as well, to make it a single issue as well as this overarching story?
It was, yeah. The plan from the beginning was to make it basically one-shot missions with every issue. What that allows us to do is we have a core cast that we revisit in most of the issues, but we also have some issues where we're able to split away from that and see different Joes around the world, focus on Cobra. I think issue 4 doesn't have a single G.I. Joe character in it. I may be wrong about that, but yeah. It allows us to really do some. We have an issue where it's just Tunnel Rat, like a solo mission where he's just desperately trying to stay alive, and we don't see him in any other issues. So yeah, it allows us to really play with the format and do some interesting things with it. And also it allows people to just walk into their shop and pick up any issue of G.I. Joe, and they'll be fine.
What I loved about it was it felt like you got. And so I'm curious about your process. It felt like everything was so specific. It felt like you just had all these great stories, and you were like, did you work from the stories into the Joes, or were you like, I need a good Tunnel Rat story, and you work out from there?
That's a good question. It varied. I mostly worked out though. Yeah. The Tunnel Rat one and the one before that about Bomb Strike and Chuckles were both because as we were getting into our second arc, Hasbro was kind of like, hey, we'd like to see more of what's happening around the world. We want this to be like more of a global book, and you're kind of,
Wow.
you've been sticking to the Midwest here for a while. So, so those two issues were sort of crafted very specifically to show what was happening in other parts of the world, while also like those are both specifically about missions that are designed to get the Joes information on Cobra's bat program. They're like killer robots that allow them to help take over the world. So they're standalones, but like you guys said, there's a meta story where it is all linked together.
Well, it's been amazing. As someone who's a fan, did you have a history with G.I. Joe? Because I know if I ever had this job, I would just be writing Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow, like giant battles. Like, what was your background with it?
No story, just fights.
Yeah, I'm a more recent convert to G.I. Joe. I actually got into it as an adult, really through the IDW comics, through their early comics.
Cool.
Like I was aware of G.I. Joe as a child. I was born in America in 1978, so I was aware of G.I. Joe, and I watched the cartoon when I was a kid. But it was a thing that my older brother was really into, and so I think that kind of like made me be less into it. As sometimes happens. Yeah. Sometimes when I tell that story, people are like, "Oh, I like G.I. Joe because my brothers were into it," and I was like, "Oh well. You have a better family than I do."
That's
but yeah, it was really as an adult that I got into the comics, and then went back and read the Hama run, which I've read like 3 times now. The first 250 issues of that.
Yeah,
so absolutely. But yeah, I do think though that not being enmeshed in it since childhood did allow me to sort of like. I was okay with holding off on Snake Eyes a little bit more, making that be like a little bit of a treat for later. I was okay with holding off on some of those elements that normally get pushed to the forefront a lot more.
I also thought you had a great balance of like just like a fun adventure story in this sort of messed up world, as well as some stories that got into some like sort of intense real world stuff. Mm-hmm. Was that your intention throughout, or how did you strike the balance between those two things?
That was my intention throughout. Yeah. I really wanted to have a tone that was a little bit more grounded, while also allowing you to have some fun with it. And again, that was a Hasbro thing as well. They were pretty on board. Like they wanted to sort of de-emphasize some of the more out there sci-fi elements, but I did manage to like sneak in the Weather Dominator and sneak in a couple other things. So they actually were kind of against using the bats at first, and I was like, no, we gotta have the bats. So that's why the bats look more robotic, whereas in the old stuff the bats just look very human. Like they look like mass on. So that was sort of part of the compromise there. I was like, there's gonna be robots like this on the battlefield, like in the next 10 years. So this really isn't even that much of science fiction. Like we're
barely
really
science fiction.
Exactly. Honestly, we should be pushing that a lot further. We have like nano robots and all kinds of wild things. Yeah. So, but yeah. I'm sorry. I think I vaguely remember your original question.
Just to jump off of what Justin is saying, one of my absolute favorite issues of the series, I think it's number 7, the one where Scarlet is just dealing with her PTSD. And that's one that I think IDW rightly pushed out for Mental Health Awareness Month and put added out as a resource for people. It's a really incredible issue. What was it like tackling that one in the midst of all this Cobra craziness?
Yeah, that was a big one. I actually had been basically researching that one from the beginning of writing the book. So I was sort of working on that one in the background while writing the first 6 issues. And then even with that, like that issue took me a long time to write. Like, I wasn't behind the art because that's, very verboten as a comic book writer, but it was definitely like pushing it right up to the edge. But no, it was tough. And I definitely knew that it would be like I don't want to say a shift in tones. I think the thing I tried to do with these stories is to have everything sort of be of the same tone, even when some of them are a little more realistic, some of them a little more sci-fi. My hope is that they feel very, very cohesive. But yeah, that was a very important issue to me, and one that we had talked about from the beginning, and that IDW and Hasbro, to their credit, were just so incredibly supportive of. So, although it was definitely a lot of research and a lot of scrutiny. Michael Kelly at Hasbro, I think, told me at one point that like more people at Hasbro read that issue than have ever read any other G.I. Joe issue, like as they're going through the approval process. So, yeah, it was definitely very closely looked at. And
it's
really
an amazing issue.
Yeah, right.
I did want to
Such a
ask
good
you
issue.
about working with the art team as well,
Yeah.
because Chris maybe I'm mispronouncing it, but Chris Evenhouse and Brittany Peer did the colors, right?
Yeah.
It's incredible what you guys have created across the board, and for anybody who hasn't read it, it has such a different look from what you might expect from a G.I. Joe book. So again, what went into crafting that world with them from the art perspective, and what's the journey been like with them over the course of these issues?
Oh, that was so great. Chris, I've actually worked with a few times before. He was actually one of the artists on my very first G.I. Joe project, like many, many years ago. And then we also did a book for Aftershock together called Monster Mechanica, which you can buy the trade of. So I actually requested that they take a look at Chris for G.I. Joe, and they did, and they were like, yeah, let's bring him on board for this. So yeah, Chris and I work really closely together on the style of the book, the design of the book, and then Bri Pierce, they're just amazing. Like, they just came in and like blew the doors off the place, and did such a great job of like making every issue look distinctive. And also this book really follows the seasons. Like this first big season 1 of issues 1 through 10 in Castlefall essentially take place over 1 year in the time of the story. And Bri did such an amazing job of like following the seasons. Like you definitely see like summer, spring, did that out of order? Spring, summer, fall, and winter. I almost did it out of order again.
It's been a while, and honestly, I don't even know what the order is anymore.
After this past year, time has no meaning whatsoever. But yeah, no, they were just such a pleasure to work with, and also the guest artists that we brought in were so fantastic as well. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. But yeah, Chris and I have really close relationship for a long time now. And Bri, I've known Bri for a while, but this is my first time. Well, not my first. We've worked on a couple of small things before. It was my first time like working with them on a longer term thing, and it was just fantastic.
Now, to be perfectly honest, again, one of the stopping points for me with G.I. Joe was always the names of the characters. That I'd get in there and I'd be like, barbecue, roadblock, what's going on here?
Come on, man.
No job.
Yeah. Well, again, you took a very, in the best way, very serious look at this. But was there anything when you got to one of the names or one of the characters where you're like, no, this is too silly, can't do this?
No, I think that's one thing you just kind of like that's just a part of it. You know what I mean? So, and again, we never use like, I don't know, like maybe as the story goes on, we might get to a point where I get to one where I'm like, I don't know about this, but no, I think so far it's been. Yeah,
I don't know if Life Ring is ready to be. Well, actually, it's funny. So we've had a long-standing debate on this show about the ridiculous names of G.I. Joe characters. So one of our fan of the show created an algorithm to develop names of G.I. Joes. So these are AI G.I. Joe names. I just want to read a couple of them. If you want to have any of these, they're fully up for grabs. Okay. You get to name any more Joes. We've got Forky Cauliflower. Troubled Grouch, which I think is really good. It applies to Pete. Wasp Piss, fun. Maybe an insect guy. Wound Man, which is sad but good. Dr. Slobber, and of course, definite G.I. Joe potential, Shitface.
Perfect.
Computer wrote those. So.
I actually just looked up a tweet because I was actually working on G.I. Joe at my New York Comic Con Artist Alley table in 2018 before the book was announced. So, and I tweeted like without naming G.I. Joe, trying to think of a name for a new character while sitting at my Artist Alley table. So far, I've got Banner Stand, Sharpie, Lanyard, and Funky Smell. So none of those made it in. But
there it is.
Yeah.
Funky Smell is not a.
Yeah.
Funky Smell's not a terrible name.
Yeah.
I want to see Funky Smell and Dr. Slobber team up.
Oh man,
that's my dream pairing, personally.
Perfect.
Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde style, I think.
Now, since you can't necessarily talk about the future of G.I. Joe, what else do you have in the works, if anything, that you can talk about, Paul?
Sure. My book Hollow Heart is coming out from Vault Comics right now. Issue 1 came out last month, and the second issue comes out next week. So you should definitely check that out. It's a queer monster love story.
Cool.
And yeah, I'm working with Paul Tucker on that, who I did the book Tet with a few years back, which is another book that I think people who enjoy my G.I. Joe run might like. But yeah, Hollow Heart's the big one. And then I have a Godzilla book coming out in June, July, with artist E.J. Sue. And that's a Godzilla. I think the official name of the book is Godzilla Rivals #1, and it's Godzilla versus Hedorah. It's the first of a series of Godzilla Rivals books they're going to do, where they put the big lizard up against some of his more famous enemies. So they asked me to start with Hedorah because Hedorah debuted in 1971, so we're at his 50-year anniversary right now. So I leaned into that by setting the story in 1971 Manhattan, and it's a lot of fun.
Now, given that you have had such deeply emotional storylines for G.I. Joe, can you do the same sort of thing for a Godzilla book? Can
of course you can.
Hold on, Pete. I'm asking our guest. All right.
He did an amazing job. Why would he stop?
No, I'm just saying Godzilla's a big lizard who breathes fire. I don't know.
No, I took a powder on the character stuff for Godzilla. It's just 40 pages of it is actually a very character focused story. It's about these two people that I don't want to say too much about because that gets into I'll get into spoiler territory very quickly if I do that. But I can say it's a guy who's trying to get a scientist who has the key to repelling these kaiju to a hospital, but he has to travel through kaiju torn Manhattan to get her there.
That's awesome.
And as the solicitation says, terrible choices will be made along the way. So yeah.
Awesome. Cool. We do have a question here from the comments for you. Joe wants to know, what's a G.I. Joe crossover you wish you could do, but know you could never do, whether cause of rights or whatever?
I haven't thought about that. Boy, I don't necessarily know, because Hasbro, I think, has been pretty open about crossovers. So I can think of plenty I'd like to do. I'm trying to think of one that would be impossible. So I don't know. Maybe my favorite movie is Jaws. I think G.I. Joe and Jaws would be a tough sell.
That's they might not ever really encounter each other.
Shipwreck would be fun.
Shipwreck up there against the Great White.
Yeah.
So another one of my favorite movies is The Conversation, and I would love to drop Harry Cole into the G.I. Joe world. And they intersect on some surveillance mission that he's doing. That would be he'll try to do it like Archie and the Punisher style, where you're true to the tones of both properties while also telling a compelling story. So I like that one more than the Jaws one. So I'm gonna say G.I. Joe and The Conversation is the crossover I would love to do, but never will be able to.
That's great. That's a deep cut.
I would definitely read it. Paul, thank you so much for coming on. Congratulations on the book. It is
we love it.
Thank you so much. We truly love it.
Thanks so much.
Have a good night.
Yep.
Take care.
Later, Paul.
All right. Once again, Paul Allor, G.I. Joe, the entire series, asterisk, maybe for now, is available from IDW. Definitely check it out. Whether you're a G.I. Joe fan or not, you're still going to like it.
You got 2 out of 3 guys here on this podcast who didn't even know the Joes.
Yeah, you got to know your Joes.
And you got to know your Joes.
We know.
Well, real quick, shout out to Nat Townsend, first stand-up guy for the AI Joes.
Horrible names.
Great.
Dr. Slobber,
there's so many more. Dr.
Slobber. Oh, did you stop yourself?
There are 50 of them. I only said 6. That's restraint. That's grown-up restraint right there.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I'm not going to restrain myself from moving on to our next section, which is your questions. Here we go.
Hello.
And in audience questions, you can ask questions 2 ways. First of all, if you're over on YouTube, drop them in the comments over there. I'll keep an eye on it. Over on Crowncast, drop them and ask a question, as I see a couple of you have already done. But first of all, what you drinking? Pete, what's your poison tonight?
Well, I love me some champagne of beers, so that's what I'm doing.
Really grinding into those. I will say, Pete, I really appreciate it that you've gone off drinking radiator fluid or whatever you were doing before into something.
I'll bring it back. Don't.
That's not a. Don't. I'm not.
Don't you dare.
I'm going with the Two-Hearted Ale.
Oh,
like a real psychopath.
Nice. No, I love it. Always reliable. I went with a 5 Boroughs Brewing Company Gridlock Hazy IPA.
Whoa. Ooh, stressful, Alex.
Yeah, that sounds stressful, man.
No, it's actually
I don't like that
very
beer.
good.
Gridlock. Even the label's just like stressing me
yeah,
out.
dude.
Nice,
No way, man.
smooth IPA. I'm enjoying it quite a bit.
Well, there's nothing smooth about that label.
Let's go over to the comments here on YouTube. The Big says, are the current financial problems in the town of Riverdale after the time jump directly linked to its dependence on a child business-based economy that ended with the gang graduating high school? That's a great question.
Wow. Yeah.
That's a great question.
And I don't know, those of you who aren't watching Riverdale and aren't tuning into Riverdale After Dark, our Riverdale podcast, we've definitely been breaking this down. There was a 7-year time jump. Everybody is back. The town of Riverdale is ruined. They're trying to bring it back by teaching. They're trying to save the town by working at the high school, as you do. Starting a fire department, as you do. Yeah, fucking around a little bit, as you do.
Wow, okay. Spoilers.
I mean, that's how you make the money.
I think the major problem with the Riverdale economy is all of the new businesses have to be below ground underneath current businesses, which is just, from a business standpoint, it's difficult. The backhoe rental is expensive.
Well, there are other options. Like Veronica is starting that jewelry business in the bad part of town, which seems like the logical thing to do.
Another thing that is a limiting factor is all of your businesses have to be based on popular movies from the last 2 years. So it sort of limits your... Uncut Gems didn't end very well for a lot of the people.
I haven't seen it yet.
That's not to say that there were problems in that movie is not that much of a spoiler.
It doesn't end happily?
That movie's been called one of the most stressful movies of the decade.
I've seen the GIFs, and they're very stressful.
Go watch it. You should watch that movie.
I should watch it, but when over the past year I've been like, I'd like to sit down and watch a very stressful movie.
And let me be honest, Alex, this movie will stress you out. The music is not for you.
Oh, man. What is it?
It's just pop hits from the mid 2000s. Just kidding. That would be for you because that's all you like to listen
exactly.
to. That's all I listen to. That's
the music for Uncut Gems is a live recording of Sting talking about getting a drink with the fans during a performance of All for One and All for Love.
Amazing. Ben the Border Collie says, I'm enjoying Invincible and think it likely benefits from being an animated adaptation. Are there other comics you think would work better as animated rather than as a live action adaptation? Now, great chance to plug that we have a new podcast, Podvincible, our Invincible podcast. We're only 2 episodes in, but that 3rd episode is coming any day now. I can feel it.
We're letting it marinate.
But I think this is an interesting question. I mean, let's look at shows that have already been adapted live that maybe would have been better animated.
Ooh, interesting. Let's see.
All of them?
I mean, well, I mean, I would throw, many of them, yes. I would throw a lot of the Arrowverse shows into that, and that's not even knocking them at all. It just feels like they are a lot like the animated shows from like the Batman the Animated Series days in a lot of ways. Like you could just sort of do that again in a way that tells longer, more interesting, more in-depth stories.
Yeah, the Arrowverse stuff in particular, I was thinking about this as I was getting caught up in a couple of the shows the other night, is very much they're soap operas, like which granted comic books are kind of like that anyway.
Yep.
But they definitely lean into the soap opera nature, and part of that is the budget. Then you watch the animated stuff. They did a Ray animated series, they did a Constantine animated series, and those are much more hardcore and much more comic booky than their live action versions. So I could see that. One that I don't know that it would be better, but I think it would be interesting. I would love to see an anime version of The Boys. I think that would work really well.
Well, that answer crossed my mind, but I just think that show is so well shot and well made
and well acted. I mean, the people are just destroying in that show.
But I would say tonally, it would be like Invincible. Invincible has some sort of shares a little bit of DNA. Invincible is much more earnest and less satire based, but it does feel a little bit like, oh, they're violent on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I'll throw out my perennial answer. The animated show that I want to see is Bone. I want to see Jeff Smith's Bone as an animated series.
There we go. We got one from Kevin. What's a classic tale you'd love to see adapted, updated, and how would you love to see it done?
A classic. Oh, this is like...
Okay, here we go.
Count.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Hot take. It's Robin Hood, but they're foxes. What?
You are so close to your camera right now. It's uncomfortable, Pete.
And microphone. Robin Hood, that's one of my Disney's Robin Hood. Too Close, also Alex, is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Ooh. Classic animated tale. Has anything not been done? Updated at this point? Honestly, I feel like every single IP that is possible to mine in any particular way has been done in every version if it's free of rights.
True. I guess just sort of some early cave paintings would be nice to see really brought to life.
They adapted that as Train Coming Towards You.
Oh, no, of course. Wow, another great Train Coming Toward You reference 2 weeks in a row.
Every week. It's the only reference I know.
What about a little book called The Bible?
Oh. The slow.
Yeah. I mean, that's such a tough, like, it's because so much, maybe that like more on the book front, like in Ethan Frome. Something no one would want to see adapted.
Wow.
All right. You know what? This is
Treasure Island.
What are we talking about? Adaptations of things that you'd like to see in comic book form? I don't know if it's ever been done as a comic book, and this is only top of mind because I'm reading it to my son as his bedtime story right now, but I'm reading Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which is so good. Also, way more religious than I realized when I read it as a kid. Like,
me too.
Crazy religious.
Yeah. I don't want to reread that because I loved. It was one of the first books I ever read on my own. Was that whole series, and the Voyage of the Dawn Treader. I still sometimes dream about falling through a painting into like a seascape, and it feels like it was just such a creative revelation to me. And then I was rereading Lion, the Witch, Wardrobe. I was like, this is trying to trick people into be Christians. I was duped. I was trying to be duped.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I'm really enjoying it now, though. Like, understanding it at that level, and like it's so clearly an allegory the entire way through. But I read it to my daughter when she was probably 2 or 3, and she was totally bored by it and didn't care. So I was focusing on that aspect a lot more. But my son's super into it, loves the mythology, loves all the characters and everything, and the writing is really fun and good. So. Yeah. I don't know. As long as you are aware of what you're getting into going in, it's really good. And I'm glad to revisit it because it was the first book I read by myself, so I have a special place in my heart for it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the one part that really stuck out as not being Christian is where you play Fuck, Marry, Kill with the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe at the end.
Oh yeah.
That part was crazy.
Fuck the wardrobe.
Of course.
Marry the lion. Kill the witch.
Kill the witch.
Bad. She's bad.
Man.
Kill the witch.
Come
no
on.
thanks.
Pete, would you have the same order?
No, definitely not the same order.
Okay, go
Fuck
ahead.
the wardrobe because it's like got that big hole going out there. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh my
Alex, no, whenever you're playing that Fuck, Marry, Kill, you don't need to go into details. Just future rep. Don't really lay into the details. That's not
this is the first time I've played this fun game.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, I'll send you. I have Milton Bradley does a great board game version of it. Fun for the whole family.
Oh wow.
Oh, great.
I really struggle to think of Milton Bradley. Is that right? I feel like that's
that is
right.
board games. Yeah,
you got it. Question here from you on YouTube. Enrique Chums says, "Did you guys enjoy the Suicide Squad trailer? Have you checked it out, guys?"
Yep.
Yeah, I thought it was very good.
It reminds me very much of the Guardians of the Galaxy trailer.
You seem resigned to that, Pete. Is that a bad comment? Is that a good comment?
Well, it seemed like an obvious choice to be like, hey, if you like Guardians of the Galaxy, guess what you'll also like? I
Sorry,
think
Pete. That's how everything has ever been.
Not all the time, but I think that it looks like a ton of fun. It looks really intense and over the top, and why not?
You're officially just through the looking glass in general, Pete. You're like, I don't know. I feel like you're like lean back. You're like, well, I don't know. Why not? Make it. Just keep on trying, guys.
Yeah, come on.
I really like the use of Harley Quinn in this. Like, I thought it was going to be difficult to go from her own movie back to like let her ever be a supporting player, and then the way they used her in this trailer, I thought was really well done.
Very funny. I mean, James Gunn's a funny guy. Like, I'm excited to check it out. It looks bigger than I expected based on the first teaser, which is good. And if you haven't seen this, obviously spoilers, turn away, but it's in the trailer. So Starro and the way that they're using Starro seems super fun.
So cool.
As well. Yeah, I'm excited to watch it. It seems like a goofy, fun movie driven home by the way that Viola Davis is playing it. And if you saw Suicide Squad, she was so serious there and so grim, and it was so like the whole Snyderverse thing. The fact that every time they cut to her and she's like, is very funny, and it's a much better way of using her.
And if this movie's fun and funny, it gives just a direction for the DC universe to go in. And it gives like just a doorway or a window or just a little crack that they can look through into something that is more fun than where they are right now.
Well, and also another thing that was nice about it, and I'm sure everybody knows this by now, but James Gunn used James Ostrander in the movie. He's in the trailer putting the bomb injection into the back of, oh my God, what's his name? Michael Rooker's head. Yeah. So it seems like it's channeling those comics, which are very gallows humor. And that's much more fun than Suicide Squad, the David Ayer version, which is just like a mess. It's all over the place.
You know what they say is gallows humor is better than just straight up gallows. And I'll stand by that for the rest of my life.
That's a good saying. That was C.S. Lewis said that, right?
Yep, famously.
We got another Riverdale question here from YouTube. Nelson Martinez says, who had the better line delivery on Riverdale, Reggie when he calls Archie and each of the rest of Bulldogs a loser, or Hiram saying the only thing he knows about the Bulldogs is that they're garbage?
Oh, man. I mean, they're both really great line readings and fun moments. I don't know. I got to go with Hiram on that one, though.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Hiram, too. He really used every letter in the word garbage.
Yeah, he sure did.
This is from Nick Grayson. Having just learned about Justice League Mortal, I was wondering what canceled comic book series, films, TV shows you would have really wanted to see. Justice League Mortal, that was the George Miller one, right? Where he was going to be doing a Justice League movie, and sounded super weird and super interesting and was in development for a really long time. So what scuttled project would you be most interested in?
I mean, there are so many, especially the weirder ones are, what was the, I can't remember either part of this. I need a second to,
So the ones that came to mind while you're thinking of it, I mean, the two Supermans that got done, I don't remember whether they're the same one, but the Nicolas Cage one, which they actually got as far as doing a test of the suit, absolutely bizarre. And then there was the J.J. Abrams one, which sounded wild and insane and not really a Superman movie at all and over the top, but there were just these crazy brainiac ideas that came out. Both of those... You know, I don't know. I'm always interested in hearing about that stuff because it's just usually the wildest ideas, and then whatever they end up on screen is like, yeah, that's a Superman movie. That's fine.
The one that came to mind for me is the Noah Hawley Doctor Doom. Would have been dope. And the reason I couldn't remember is because I kept thinking of Noah Wiley, the actor from ER, and his Doctor Doom script is awful. So I didn't want to say that.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It's Noah Hawley's Doctor Doom. He turned the script in like 2019, so it could still happen.
Joe mentions the old Fox Lock and Key pilot, which is really good. If you never chased it down, it's kind of bumping around on like Vimeo and other places and is great. I think they showed it off a couple of times at San Diego Comic-Con. I've never seen the Hulu one, which I'd be really fascinated to see as well. If anybody is listening to this and wants to sneak it our way, that would be awesome.
Ooh.
But that would be very cool. Cool. Good question. All right, let's go on here. Joe says, considering the G.I. Joe discussion, what is your favorite Marvel licensed comic book?
Comic book series licensed Marvel, obviously NFL Super Pro. We all ride for that.
Yeah.
I'll just speak for all of you guys.
Yeah.
Definitely that. The Mantis, obviously whatever Mantis comic book they did back in the day, definitely ride for that.
Right.
I mean, this way they've handled Star Wars, I think, has been
Yeah, I mean,
very
actually,
good.
if you want to give an honest answer, yeah.
Also very early going, but Philip Kennedy Johnson's Alien was excellent.
Yes.
Just a great first issue.
Too early to make that kind of call. It's
the best one of all time.
It's the only issue one. Let's slow the roll a little
Sorry.
bit.
Nothing
Live in
better.
the moment.
I'll tell you what, if the second issue isn't as good, I'm never doing the show again.
Wow.
Wow, that's a very subjective way for you to bail on this show. Hey, disappointed me. I'm out.
Good stuff.
Hey, it was a good run.
Yeah.
It's not over yet.
And we got one last question here. Oh, Suicide Squad wise, how many villains actually die in the comics? It feels like far less than one might think. Yeah, I mean, nobody really dies in the comics, right?
Yes, but the most recent couple issues we've read, people are dying.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of randos dying all the time.
That's true.
Yeah,
you can always kill off randos. I'd also recommend, oh my God, what was it? It was the Thunderbolts that Matthew Rosenberg wrote over at Marvel, tying into King in Black, which is basically his version of Suicide Squad, but in the Marvel universe. Super fun. Kills off a lot of people. Definitely.
Bergie.
What?
Bergie.
Oh, Bergie, like Matthew Rosenberg.
Yeah.
I thought you were like, Fergie, my
I thought
favorite
you
member
said-
of the Black Eyed Peas.
I thought you were shouting out Bernie Sanders for a minute. I was like, what?
Well, on that note, we're going to move to our next section, which is trivia. And for that, we're going to turn it over to Pete LaPorge.
Pete LePage,
All
the
right.
star of trivia, coming through.
All right, this part we give back to you, the lovely audience, an opportunity to win $25 free in the form of a gift card to Midtown Comics. You get $25 free for online comics. Sounds like a fun deal. All you have to do is raise your hand, be first hand up person.
Yeah, whether you're on YouTube or Crowdcast, just say me or hand up or hello or whatever you want to do, and we will pick on you. And you're going to walk away
We're
with
not going to
$25.
pick on you. We're
No.
going to pick you for the
We're
trivia.
going to make fun of you.
Oh, no. Come on.
Ooh, here we go. John.
John George.
Yeah, let's bring him
Okay.
in there.
All right.
Nice. Bringing John into the stream here so we can ask him some trivia. We'll see what happens. But it should be very exciting. He should win $25.
Yeah,
He
Pete,
might.
this is from your own bank account, right?
No, this is from Midtown Comics. Yeah. I'm not going to just mail you $25.
But you're sort of the Willy Wonka of Midtown Comics, right?
I think that's a nice thing to say about somebody, but I don't know
Is
if I
it?
would.
Is it nice to call somebody the Willy Wonka?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that you feel like I own Midtown Comics, can walk around and use their elevator.
Oh, man,
You
I'll
do
tell
do
you
that.
what.
You do
John can't connect right now, so I'll tell you what. Why don't we just do it in the comments? You read it, and he'll comment in the comments.
All right,
that.
great.
He's going to comment in the comments. Great. This is more time for us to really be the stars of trivia.
Oh boy, this is about John, guys. Okay,
So
here we
here,
go.
why don't you, Pete, why don't you ask the questions to me?
Hey!
Oh no!
Oh, no.
Oh, he's in a loop of some kind.
That's fine. Quick, ask some questions. Pete, go.
All right, today's trivia is on topical comic news and a small nod to the legend Jessica Walter. All right, here we go. Question number 1. There's going to be a new upcoming X-Men story from which amazing writer? Is it A, Victor Laval, B, Brian K. Vaughan, or is it C, Vivica Davis? So it's A, and $25 will be closer to being yours, or you can pick B and C.
It's A.
A is correct.
Great stuff.
Really, going in that Mickey Mouse room really changed things up. We can see you great. All right, here we go.
Yeah,
Question
romper
number
room.
2. Wednesday, March 31st, Daniel Warren Johnson drops what number 1 comic? Is it A, Beta Ray Bill number 1, B, Fing Fang Foom number 1, or is it C, Jon Favreau is number 1? So it's either A, or you could pick B or C.
It's A.
A is correct. Here we
Great.
go. Last
All
one.
right.
New couple alert, maybe. In Captain, In Captain Marvel number 27, who does Carol Danvers hook up with? Is it A, Alien Steve, B, Doctor Strange, or is it C, George Clinton? So it's either A, don't pick it, or it's B, Doctor Strange.
I think it's B, Doctor Strange.
You are correct.
Nice.
$25 is yours.
Wow. Congratulations. Congratulations, John. That's awesome. You're going to get $25 to Midtown Comics. We'll send it on your way. Thanks for coming on.
Cheers, guys.
All right.
Great to see you.
Good to see John. Very exciting.
Pete, can I make a pitch that every week you have a new couple alert for us?
Oh, okay. All right. Sure. I'll work on that.
I think that's a great new segment for us.
Great. And I just want to point out, Kevin is correct. It is PCU.
The
PCU.
secret movie that you're teeing up, he also mentions, of course, that Jessica Walter was the star of the Doctor Strange movie, not the one with Benedict Cumberbatch, but the one before that.
Cool.
There you go, 1978. Great. I love that you're like, nah, I'm not interested in trivia anymore.
Yeah, I hate trivia. You hate trivia.
All right. As we all know, tomorrow is New Comic Book Day. We recommend you go wherever is safe. What are you guys looking forward to, Pete?
I'm looking forward to Beta Ray Bill number 1. Woohoo!
Any particular reason? Anything you want to say about it?
I think the artist and writer is pretty amazing. Their work, it speaks for itself. It's pretty magical.
It's Daniel Warren Johnson, who you love from Murder Falcon. He is doing the art.
Murder Falcon! It's a falcon that murders!
Not the official song. Justin, what are you looking forward to?
I agree about Beta Ray Bill for sure, but I'm going to throw it out additionally to Decorum number 7 by Jonathan Hickman, a book that is really continuing to be the strange bird that it started out, but getting a little bit more, it's making a little more sense every issue.
Yeah. I'm going to give a shout out to another Jonathan Hickman book, X-Men 19, a book that we're not going to be talking about in our
Well, then why bring it up?
Not talk about it on our Stack podcast because I didn't want to be yelled at by somebody, but it's fucking awesome. So there you go.
Oh, that's a cheat.
Yeah.
Alex, how dare you? How dare you deviate?
It's
I'll do whatever I
you
want.
wouldn't even put it on the stack.
I'll do whatever I want.
You know,
I'm a free man.
We started the show with Pete and I going rogue, but you're the true rogue. You're the true Porthos of this podcast.
Oh, thank you. Well, anyway, you can check out some of those reviews on our Stack podcast Wednesday, 9 a.m. on the Comic Book Club feed, and it's only a Stack feed. And folks, that is it for our show. Really big show. A couple of people we want to thank before we go. We want to thank Ibrahim Moustafa. You should check out Count. It's available from Humanoids everywhere. Also, G.I. Joe from IDW by Paul Allor. Check that out as well. And I want to mention we have 2 big shows coming up at you over the next 2 weeks. Next week, Scott Snyder is going to be back here with editor Will Dennis talking about Noctera, the huge, very big new comic from Image Comics. We'll be talking about issue number 2 and everything else. Also, 2 weeks from now, I don't know if you guys know this, on the eve of the release of a very special comic book, we're going to have a packed show for you in 2 weeks with Joe Hill, Gabriel Rodriguez, and Chris Ryall talking about Lock and Key, Hell and God, right before it comes out. So that's going to be very awesome as well. So look forward to the next 2 weeks and all weeks. They're all awesome.
And all weeks.
A couple of other things to plug. Riverdale After Dark, our Riverdale podcast, is doing one more Wednesday before the big break, so check that out. Marvel Vision, our Marvel podcast, currently talking about Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Podvincible, our Invincible podcast, is running right now. Patreon.com/Comic Book Club to support the show and other shows we do. iTunes, Android, Spotify, Stitcher, or the app of your choice to subscribe and listen and follow. Also on iTunes, leave us a comment and a rating. We would appreciate that. At Comic Book Live on Twitter, comicbookclublive.com for this podcast and many more. Until next time, bye-bye.
Good night, guys. The Winter Shoulder is the Count de Monte Cristo's.
Sorry, I can't pronounce things.
No, come on. There's no
Come on.
apology.
Who
You got-
can? Who
Alex,
can?
there's a reason you do all of that stuff. All we could do is just casually make fun of you every now and again.
Love it. All right. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Later.